Book 1, Canto 9, of The Faerie Queen, by Edmund Spenser. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Thomas Copeland.
Canto 9. His loves and lineage Arthur tells, the knights knit friendly bands. Sir Trevison flies from despair, whom Red Cross Knight withstands. O goodly golden chain, wherewith afere the virtues linked are in lovely wise, and noble minds of yore allied were in brave pursuit of chivalrous emprise, that none did other's safety despise, nor aid and vie to him in need that stands, but friendly each did other's praise devise, how to advance with favourable hands, as this good prince redeemed the Red Cross Knight from bands. Who, when their powers impaired through labour long, with due repast they had recured well, and that weak captive wight now wexed strong, them lest no longer there at leisure dwell, but forward fare as their adventures fell. But ere they parted, Una fair besought that stranger knight his name and nation tell, lest so great good as he for her had wrought should die unknown and buried be in thankless thought. Fair virgin, said the prince, ye me require a thing without the compass of my wit, for both the lineage and the certain sire from which I sprung from me are hidden yet. For all so soon as life did me admit into this world and showed heaven's light, from mother's pap I taken was unfit, and straight delivered to a fairy knight, to be upbrought in gentle thews and martial might. Unto old Timon he me brought belive, old Timon, who in youthly years hath been in warlike feats th' expertest man alive, and is the wisest now on earth, I ween. His dwelling is low in a valley green, under the foot of Roran mossy hoar, from whence the river Dee as silver clean his tumbling billows rolls with gentle roar. There all my days he trained me up in virtuous lore. Thither the great magician Merlin came, as was his use, oft times to visit me, for he had charge my discipline to frame, and tutors' nouriture to oversee. Him oft and oft I asked in privity, of what loins and what lineage I did spring, whose answer bade me still assured be, that I was son and heir unto a king, as time in her just term the truth to light should bring. Well, worthy imp, said then the lady gent, and pupil fit for such a tutor's hand, but what adventure or what high intent hath brought you hither into fairyland? A reed, Prince Arthur, crown of martial band. Full hard it is, quoth he, to read aright the course of heavenly cause, or understand the secret meaning of the eternal might that rules men's ways and rules the thoughts of living wight. For whither he through fatal deep foresight me hither sent, for cause to me unguessed, or that fresh bleeding wound which day and night whilome doth rankle in my riven breast, with forced fury following his behest, me hither brought by ways yet never found, you to have helped, I hold myself yet blessed. Ah, courteous knight, quoth she, what secret wound could ever find to grieve the gentlest heart on ground? Dear dame, quoth he, you sleeping sparks awake, which troubled once into huge flames will grow, ne ever will their fervent fury slake, till living moisture into smoke do flow, and wasted life do lie in ashes low. Yet sith in silence lesseneth not my fire, but told it flames and hidden it does glow, I will reveal what ye so much desire. Ah, love, lay down thy bow the whiles I may respire. It was in freshest flower of youthly years, when courage first does creep in manly chest, then first the coal of kindly heat appears to kindle love in every living breast. But me had warned old Timon's wise behest those creeping flames by reason to subdue, before their rage grew to so great unrest as miserable lovers use to rue, which still wex old in woe, whiles woe still wexeth new. That idle name of love and lover's life, as loss of time and virtue's enemy, I ever scorned, and joyed to stir up strife in midst of their mournful tragedy. I wont to laugh when them I heard to cry, and blow the fire which them to ashes brent. Their God himself, grieved at my liberty, shot many a dart at me with fierce intent, but I them warded all with wary government. But all in vain. No fort can be so strong, ne fleshly breast can armed be so sound, but will at last be won with battery long, or unawares at disadvantage found. Nothing is sure that grows on earthly ground, and who most trusts in arm of fleshly might, and boasts in beauty's chain not to be bound, doth soonest fall in disadventurous fight, and yields his caitiff neck to victor's most despite. Ensample make of him your hapless joy, and of myself, now mated as you see, whose prouder vaunt that proud avenging boy did soon pluck down, and curbed my liberty. For on a day pricked forth with jollity of looser life and heat of hardiment, ranging the forest wide on courser free, the fields, the floods, the heavens, with one consent did seem to laugh on me, and favour mine intent. For wearied with my sports, I did alight from lofty steed, and down to sleep me laid. The verdant grass my couch did goodly dight, and pillow was my helmet fair displayed. Whiles every sense the humour sweet embade, and slumbering soft my heart did steal away, meseemed by my side a royal maid her dainty limbs full softly down did lay. So fair a creature yet saw never sunny day. Most goodly glee and lovely blandishment she to me made, and bade me love her dear, for dearly sure her love was to me bent, as when just time expired should appear. But whether dreams delude or true it were, was never heart so ravished with delight, ne living man like words did ever hear, as she to me delivered all that night. And at her parting said she, Queen of Fairies hight. When I awoke and found her place devoid, and naught but pressed grass where she had lien, I sorrowed all so much as erst I joyed, and washed all her place with watery eyen. From that day forth I loved that face divine, from that day forth I cast in careful mind to seek her out with labour and long time, and never vow to rest till her I find. 9 months I seek in vain, yet nil that vow unbind. Thus as he spake his visage waxed pale, and change of hue great passion did bewray. Yet still he strove to cloak his inward bale, and hide the smoke that did his fire display. Till gentle Una thus to him gan say, O happy Queen of Fairies, that hast found mongst many one that with his prowess may defend thine honour, and thy foes confound. True loves are often sown, but seldom grow on ground. Thine, O then, said the gentle Red Cross Knight, next to that lady's love shall be the place, O fairest virgin, full of heavenly light, whose wondrous faith, exceeding earthly race, was firmest fixed in mine extremest case. And you, my lord, the patron of my life, of that great queen may well gain worthy grace. For only worthy you through prowess proof, if living man mote worthy be to be her lief. So diversely discoursing of their loves, the golden sun his glistering head gan shew, and sad remembrance now the prince moves, with fresh desire his voyage to pursue. All's Una earned her travel to renew. Then those 2 knights, fast friendship for to bind, and love establish each to other true, gave goodly gifts, the signs of grateful mind, and eke as pledges firm right hands together joined. Prince Arthur gave a box of diamonds sure, embowed with gold and gorgeous ornament, wherein were closed few drops of liquor pure, of wondrous worth and virtue excellent, that any wound could heal incontinent. which to requite, the Red Cross Knight him gave a book, wherein his Saviour's testament was writ with golden letters rich and brave, a work of wondrous grace, and able souls to save. Thus been they parted, Arthur on his way to seek his love, and th' other for to fight with Una's foe, that all her realm did prey. But she now weighing the decayed plight and shrunken sinews of her chosen knight, would not a while her forward course pursue, ne bring him forth in face of dreadful fight, till he recovered had his former hue. For him to be yet weak and weary well she knew. So as they travelled, lo, they gan espy an armed knight towards them gallop fast, that seemed from some feared foe to fly, or other grisly thing that him aghast. Still as he fled his eye was backward cast, as if his fear still followed him behind. Als flew his steed as he his bands had brast, and with his winged heels did tread the wind, as he had been a foal of Pegasus's kind. Nigh as he drew they might perceive his head to be unarmed, and curled uncombed hairs upstaring stiff, dismayed with uncouth dread. Nor drop of blood in all his face appears, nor life in limb, and to increase his fears, in foul reproach of knighthood's fair degree, about his neck an hempen rope he wears, that with his glistering arms does ill agree. But he of rope or arms has now no memory. The Red Cross Knight toward him crossed fast, to weet what Mr. Wight was so dismayed. There he him finds all senseless and aghast, that of himself he seemed to be afraid, whom hardly he from flying forward stayed, till he these words to him deliver might: Sir Knight, areed who hath you thus arrayed, and eke from whom make ye this hasty flight? For never knight I saw in such misseeming plight. He answered not at all, but adding new fear to his first amazement, staring wide with stony eyes and heartless hollow hue, astonished stood, as one that had espied infernal furies with their chains untied. Him yet again and yet again bespake the gentle knight, who not to him replied, but trembling every joint did inly quake, and faltering tongue at last these words seemed forth to shake: For God's dear love, Sir Knight, do not me stay, for lo, he comes fast after me. Eft looking back would fain have run away, but he him forced to stay, and tellen free the secret cause of his perplexity. Yet now the more by his bold hearty speech could his blood frozen heart emboldened be, but through his boldness rather fear did reach. Yet forced at last he made through silence sudden breach. And am I now in safety sure, quoth he, from him that would have forced me to die? And is the point of death now turned from me, that I may tell this hapless history? Fear not, quoth he, no danger now is nigh. Then shall I you recount a rueful case, said he, the which with this unlucky eye I late beheld, and had not greater grace me reft from it, had been partaker of the place. I lately chanced, would I had never chanced, with a fair knight to keep in company, Sir Terwinhight, that well himself advanced in all affairs, and was both bold and free, but not so happy as mote happy be. He loved, as was his lot, a lady gent, that him again loved in the least degree, for she was proud and of too high intent, and joyed to see her lover languish and lament. From whom returning sad and comfortless, as on the way together we did fare, we met that villain, God from him me bless, that cursed wight, from whom I scaped whileare, a man of hell that calls himself Despair, who first us greets, and after fair reads of tidings strange, and of adventures rare. So creeping close as snake in hidden weeds, inquireth of our states and of our knightly deeds. Which when he knew, and felt our feeble hearts embossed with bale, and bitter biting grief, which love had launched with his deadly darts, With wounding words and terms of foul reprief, he plucked from us all hope of due relief, that erst us held in love of lingering life. Then, hopeless, heartless, 'gan the cunning thief persuade us die, to stint all further strife. To me he lent this rope, to him a rusty knife, with which sad instrument of hasty death, that woeful lover, loathing linger light, a wide way made to let forth living breath. But I, more fearful, or more lucky wight, dismayed with that deformed dismal sight, fled fast away, half dead with dying fear, ne yet assured of life by you, Sir Knight, whose like infirmity like chance may bear, but God you never let his charmed speeches hear. How may a man, said he, with idle speech be won to spoil the castle of his health? I wot, quoth he, whom trial late did teach, that like would not for all this world as wealth. His subtle tongue like dropping honey melteth into the heart, and searcheth every vein, that ere one be aware, by secret stealth his power is reft, and weakness doth remain. Oh, never, sir, desire to try his guileful train. Certes, said he, hence shall I never rest, till I that treacher's art have heard and tried. And you, Sir Knight, whose name mote I request, of grace do me unto his cabin guide. I that hight Trevison, quoth he, will ride against my liking, back to do you grace. But nor for gold nor glee will I abide by you, when ye arrive in that same place, for liever had I die than see his deadly face. Ere long they come where that same wicked wight his dwelling has, low in an hollow cave, far underneath a craggy cliff depite, dark, doleful, dreary, like a greedy grave, that still for carrion carcasses doth crave. On top whereof aye dwelt the ghastly owl, shrieking his baleful note, which ever drave far from that haunt all other cheerful fowl. And all about it wandering ghosts did wail and howl. And all about old stalks and stubs of trees, whereon nor fruit nor leaf was ever seen, did hang upon the ragged rocky knees, on which had many wretches hanged been, whose carcasses were scattered on the green, and thrown about the cliffs. Arrived there, that barehead knight, for dread and doleful teen, would fain have fled, ne durst approach anear, but the other forced him stay, and comforted in fear. That darksome cave they enter, where they find that cursed man low sitting on the ground, musing full sadly in his sullen mind. His greasy locks, long grown and unbound, disordered hung about his shoulders round, and hid his face, through which his hollow eyne looked deadly dull, and stared as astound. His raw-boned cheeks, through penury and pine, were shrunk into his jaws, as he did never dine. His garment naught but many ragged clouts, with thorns together pinned and patched was, the which his naked sides he wrapped abouts. And him beside there lay upon the grass a dreary corse, whose life away did pass, all wallowed in his own yet lukewarm blood, that from his wound yet welled fresh, alas, in which a rusty knife fast fixed stood, and made an open passage for the gushing flood. Which piteous spectacle approving true the woful tale that Trevison had told, when as the gentle Red Cross knight did view, with fiery zeal he burnt in courage bold him to avenge before his blood were cold, and to the villain said: Thou damned wight, the author of this fact we here behold, what justice can but judge against thee right, with thine own blood to price his blood here shed in sight? What frantic fit, quoth he, hath thus distraught thee, foolish man, so rash a doom to give? What justice ever other judgment taught, but he should die who merits not to live? None else to death this man despairing drive, but his own guilty mind deserving death. Is then unjust to each his due to give? Or let him die that loatheth living breath? or let him die at ease that liveth here uneath. Who travels by the weary wandering way to come unto his wished home in haste, and meets a flood that doth his passage stay, is not great grace to help him overpast, or free his feet that in the mire stick fast? Most envious man that grieves at neighbour's good, and fond that joyest in the woe thou hast, why wilt not let him pass that long hath stood upon the bank, yet wilt thyself not pass the flood? He there does now enjoy eternal rest and happy ease, which thou dost want and crave, and further from it daily wanderest. What if some little pain the passage have, that makes frail flesh to fear the bitter wave? Is not short pain well borne that brings long ease, and lays the soul to sleep in quiet grave? Sleep after toil, port after stormy seas, ease after war, death after life, does greatly please. The knight much wondered at his sudden wit, and said, the term of life is limited, ne may a man prolong nor shorten it. The soldier may not move from watchful stead, nor leave his stand until his captain bed. Who life did limit by almighty doom, quoth he, knows best the terms established, and he that points the sentinel his room, doth license him depart at sound of morning droom. Is not his deed whatever thing is done in heaven and earth? Did not he all create to die again? All ends that was begun. Their times in his eternal book of fate are written sure, and have their certain date. Who then can strive with strong necessity that holds the world in his still changing state, or shun the death ordained by destiny? When hour of death is come, let none ask whence nor why. The longer life, I wot, the greater sin, the greater sin, the greater punishment. All those great battles which thou boast'st to win through strife and bloodshed and avengement, now praised, hereafter dear thou shalt repent. For life must life, and blood must blood repay. Is not enough thy evil life forspent? For he that once hath missed the right way, the further he doth go, the further he doth stray. Then do no further go, no further stray, but here lie down, and to thy rest betake, will to prevent that life ensuen may. For what hath life that may it loved make, and gives not rather cause it to forsake? Fear, sickness, age, loss, labor, sorrow, strife, pain, hunger, cold, that makes the heart to quake. And ever fickle fortune rageth rife, all which and thousands mo do make a loathsome life. Thou, wretched man, of death hast greatest need, if in true balance thou wilt weigh thy state. For never knight that dared warlike deed more luckless disadventures did amate. Witness the dungeon deep wherein of late thy life shut up, for death so oft did call, and though good luck prolonged hath thy date, yet death then would the like mishaps forestall, into the which hereafter thou mayest happen fall. Why then dost thou, O man of sin, desire to draw thy days forth to their last degree? Is not the measure of thy sinful hire high heaped up with huge iniquity against the day of wrath to burden thee? Is not enough that to this lady mild thou falsed hast thy faith with perjury, and sold thyself to serve Duessa viled, with whom in all abuse thou hast thyself defiled? Is not he just that all this doth behold from highest heaven, and bears an equal eye? Shall he thy sins up in his knowledge fold, and guilty be of thine impiety? Is not his law, let every sinner die, die shall all flesh? What then must needs be done? Is it not better to do willingly than linger till the glass be all outrun? Death is the end of woes. Die soon, O fairy's son. The knight was much enmoved with his speech, that as a sword's point through his heart did pierce, and in his conscience made a secret breach, well knowing true all that he did rehearse, and to his fresh remembrance did reverse the ugly view of his deformed crimes, that all his manly powers it did disperse, as he were charmed with enchanted rhymes, that oftentimes he quaked, and fainted oftentimes. In which amazement, when the miscreant perceived him to waver weak and frail, whiles trembling horror did his conscience daunt, and hellish anguish did his soul assail, to drive him to despair and quite to quail, he showed him painted in a table plain the damned ghosts that do in torments wail, and thousand fiends that do them endless pain, with fire and brimstone, which for ever shall remain. The sight whereof so throughly him dismayed, that naught but death before his eyes he saw, and ever burning wrath before him laid, by righteous sentence of the Almighty's law. Then gan the villain him to overcraw, and brought unto him swords, ropes, poison, fire, and all that might him to perdition draw, and bade him choose what death he would desire, for death was due to him that had provoked God's ire. But whenas none of them he saw him take, he to him wrought a dagger sharp and keen, and gave it him in hand. His hand did quake and tremble like a leaf of aspen green, and troubled blood through his pale face was seen to come and go, with tidings from the heart, as it a running messenger had been. At last, resolved to work his final smart, he lifted up his hand, that back again did start, which when as Una saw, through every vein the cruddled cold ran to her well of life, as in a swoon, but soon relieved again. Out of his hand she snatched the cursed knife, and threw it to the ground, enraged rife, and to him said, Fie, fie, faint-hearted knight, what meanest thou by this reproachful strife? Is this the battle which thou vaunt'st to fight, with that fire-mouthed dragon, horrible and bright? Come, come away, frail, silly, fleshly wight, ne let vain words bewitch thy manly heart, ne devilish thoughts dismay thy constant sprite. In heavenly mercies hast thou not a part? Why shouldst thou then despair that chosen art? Where justice grows, there grows eke greater grace, the which doth quench the brand of hellish smart, and that accursed handwriting doth deface. Arise, Sir Knight, arise, and leave this cursed place. So up he rose, and thence amounted straight, which when the carle beheld, and saw his guest would safe depart, for all his subtle sleight, he chose an halter from among the rest, and with it hung himself, unbid, unblessed. But death he could not work himself thereby, for 1,000 times he so himself addressed, yet natheless it could not do him die, till he should die as last, that is, eternally.
End Book 1, Canto 9. Recording by Thomas Copeland.